Good afternoon, everyone. I hereby call this meeting of the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. Ms. Silbaugh, do we have a quorum today?
Yes, Chair, we do have a quorum. Participating in the meeting today are yourself as Chair, Vice Chair Lobby, Secretary Treasurer Conklin, and Commissioners Bob, Rouse, Drummer, and alternate Commissioners Belzak. And Commissioner Higgins will be joining momentarily.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Now we will turn to our safety message from Mr. Braxton. Mr. Braxton?
Thank you, Chair Hart. As we move into the second half of March and transition towards warmer weather, it's a great time to refocus on safety at work and at home. Changing conditions like increased rain, wind, or lingering cold can create unexpected hazards. Stay alert for slippery surfaces, shifting ground conditions, and reduced visibility during early morning hours. Review proper lifting techniques, keep walkways clear, and ensure all equipment is inspected before use. March also marks the start of meteorological spring, which is a 3-month period used by forecasters for consistent climate tracking, running annually from March 1st to May 31st in the Northern Hemisphere. This season signals a shift to warmer, more volatile weather, including the beginning of tornado season in parts of the United States. So refresh your knowledge of emergency procedures and verify that communication devices are fully charged and accessible. Maintaining situational awareness, practicing good housekeeping, and speaking up about potential risks helps protect everyone. Safety is a daily commitment. Let's continue this month strong and stay mindful together. Thank you, and that concludes the safety message.
Thank you, Mr. Braxton. We will now move on to the minutes from our last meeting. Secretary Treasurer Conklin, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Hart, and thank you. The minutes from the January 20th, 2026 meeting were posted for review. In addition, I'd like to report on a closed session held on March 10th, 2026. The commissioners confirmed that during the session, the commissioners discussed only a matter related to internal personnel rules and practices of the agency in accordance with the requirements of United States Code Title V, Section 552B, Section C2. At the conclusion of the session, the commissioners gave direction for action to staff. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, I move approval of the January 20th, 2026 minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice Chair Lobby has seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand of approving the minutes. Say aye.
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 Any opposed?
So Chair, the vote is unanimous, 6 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes are accepted as presented.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Next on the agenda, we provide an opportunity for public comments at each of our meetings. To ensure that we recognize all who wish to speak, excuse me, we provided an opportunity for those who have joined the Zoom meeting to sign up in the chat box. If you wish to speak but did not sign in, please do so now. I would also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any safety concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels, or by email. Ms. Miner, do we have anyone who has indicated they would like to speak today?
No, Chair Hart, there are no names in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miner. We will now continue with the next agenda item, which is my remarks. I have several matters that are specific to the commissioners. I'll start with recognizing and sharing my appreciation for the service of our Vice Chair, Bob Lowby. Bob was appointed in 2020 as an alternate from Virginia, then became a member in the summer of 2023. He also has served as the Vice Chair since 2023. Bob generously shared his knowledge and experience with rail equipment, operations, and rules. He asked thoughtful, probing questions and provided practical awareness of the issues or solutions to motivate us all to be better, to be safer. His insights during work sessions and public meetings were invaluable. The commission certainly appreciates and certainly will miss his service and expertise. But Bob shared with us that he is at the ideal time in his life to wind down his work obligations so he can enjoy more time with family and with traveling. He certainly deserves this time, and we wish him the very, very best. Bob, do you have any words of wisdom in the moment for the WMSC?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hart. Thank you for those kind words. Serving Virginia as a commissioner on the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission has really been an honor for me. It has also been exceedingly satisfying to work with so many talented and dedicated safety professionals. From Chair Hart, the commissioners, WMSC staff, and the executive leadership of both WMSC and the Washington Metro Rail. The work has been very interesting and sometimes challenging. I'm proud to say that the progress gained through the hard work of the WMSC staff and the talented Washington Metro staff has left Washington Metro Rail safer than ever before. Finally, I want to thank the city for the opportunity to serve in this capacity and Governor Youngkin for my appointment to the commission. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bob, for those kind words. It really takes a team, and you are a great team leader. Another milestone I'd like to recognize today is that on behalf of the WMSC, our congratulations to Metro Rail for its 50th anniversary. On March 27th, 1976, the first rail cars entered revenue service, and the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia community was changed forever. I remember it like it was yesterday. Later in this meeting, the commissioners will review and vote on the adoption of the annual report of the WMSC operations and the safety of WMATA rail system in 2025. In part in recognition of Metro Rail's 50th anniversary milestone, the annual report has a timeline of key events in WMATA's and the WMSC's history. Our meeting today also includes updates on the WMSC's ongoing safety oversight of activities and the actions that we take on a daily basis to help ensure that Metro Rail upholds its safety commitments and strives to continuously improve the safety of its system. Last but not least, the commissioner's business today includes the election of officers of the WMSC for new 2-year terms that start later this month. WMSC officers are elected for 2-year terms, and the current terms expire on March 27th, 2026. Therefore, we will now turn to the election of the positions of chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer. I informed the commissioners that we would elect officers at this meeting and invited commissioners who are eligible and interested in the positions to contact me both about the roles and to express their interest. We will start with the election for chair for the term of March 28, 2026 through March 27, 2028. If an eligible commissioner is interested in serving as chair, please express that interest now. I am not eligible because my term as commissioner has expired, and under our compact, holdover commissioners are not eligible to be elected as officers, so I will not be on the slate. So if anybody is interested, in being chairman, this is the time to let me know.
Chair Hart, I'd like to express interest in taking over as chair of the commission. I first want to thank you for the incredible leadership you've provided in this role. And your incredible expertise in transportation safety, which I've grown to understand and appreciate. If the commissioners were willing to elect me chair, I'd like to continue the efforts of the commission to improve our collaboration with Metro Rail and other regional stakeholders to achieve the best safety outcomes for the region, and continue to focus on data-driven safety investigations and safety improvement work at the commission, and also to ultimately affect Metro Rail, which is the operator of the system. So thank you for your consideration.
So thank you. And if there are additional people who would be interested in being chairman, now is the time to say so. And also now is the time to ask questions of what we've heard so far in terms of the election to chairman. Is there anybody else who's interested? Well, hearing none, is there a motion to nominate a new chair?
So move.
Okay,
So moved.
I'm sorry,
I think
was it?
Robert Bob had moved first, but I'm sorry, Commissioner Drummer has raised his hand.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Drummer?
I was going to nominate, but he's already been nominated.
Okay. Perfect. So I believe this second voice, was that you, Vice Chair Lobby? No.
Yes.
Okay. Will you stand as a second? From the nomination?
I will happily do a second.
Okay. So we've moved and seconded the consideration of Secretary Treasurer Conklin as our chair.
So all those in favor of electing Commissioner Conklin as chair, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
The vote is 6 yeas, 0 nays. So congratulations that the vote has passed to elect our new chair, Secretary Treasurer Conklin.
Thank you. Look forward to working with all the commissioners in the coming term.
Congratulations, Chair to be Conklin. The agency will do well under you, I'm sure.
Thank you.
So congratulations to Commissioner Conklin. Now we are looking for anyone who is interested in being vice chair.
Commissioner Rouse has raised his hand, Chair.
Commissioner Rouse, please.
Yes, thank you. And although it's impossible to fill the shoes of somebody as legendary as Commissioner Lobby, I would be more than happy to attempt to do my best in that role and support the chair and the rest of the commission here in the role of vice chair.
Well, thank you. We certainly appreciate that. Is anybody else interested in vice chairman? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please
Aye.
raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Yay.
All opposed?
So again, we have a unanimous vote in support of Commissioner Conklin becoming our vice chair. Congratulations.
Commissioner Rouse.
I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, sorry.
I can't do
Giving you
both, I
two
promise.
jobs today. Yes, sorry. Commissioner Rouse will as our vice chair.
Thank you. Congratulations, Vice Commissioner to be Rouse. We look forward to having you as the assistant leader of this August agency. Now we'll move on to the Secretary Treasurer. Is anybody interested in serving as Secretary Treasurer?
Commissioner Drummer has raised his hand.
Mr. Drummer, thank you for your interest. Anybody else interested in serving as Secretary Treasurer, or does anybody have any questions of Commissioner Drummer as in relation to his interest?
Move the appointment.
Okay, the appointment's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of electing Commissioner Drummond as Secretary Treasurer, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Once again, a unanimous vote to elect Commissioner Drummer as our Secretary Treasurer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, certainly, Secretary Treasurer Drummer, we look forward to having you as our keeping our act together so that we all stay out of jail, because I believe in free room and board as much as the next guy, but not that much. So thanks for what you're going to do to help that happen. So congratulations to all of our newly elected officers. Dr. Meyer, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, thank you. I do have some updates. First, for myself and the WMSC staff, I want to thank you and congratulations to the new officers. We look forward to working with you as you assume your new roles at the end of the month. And of course, I want to add my words of appreciation to Vice Chair Lobby for his service to the WMSC and the industry in general. And also my sincere thanks to Chair Hart for his service as Commissioner and Chair of the WMSC. It's obviously been a pleasure working for and with you. Also, in your remarks, Chair Hart, you said that later in the meeting, the commissioners will review and vote on the annual report on WMSC operations and the safety of the WMATA rail system for the year 2025. This report and its recipients are described in the WMSC Compact. Last year, Commissioner Higgins suggested that we move up our timetable for our annual report to coincide with Metro Rail's 50th anniversary, and my thanks to all the staff who worked to make that happen. Separately, the WMSC, like all state safety oversight agencies, reports its oversight activities in an annual data upload to the Federal Transit Administration. And I wanted to let you know that that reporting was due to the FTA yesterday, and we transmitted it in a timely manner. My thanks to Sharmila and the entire team for making that happen. Next, in February, I had some in-person meetings, one with WMATA's General Manager Randy Clark and another with Maria Zimmerman, the newly appointed Director of Virginia's Department of Rail and Public Transportation, that's DRPT. My conversation with the WMATA General Manager included updates on key projects. For example, Metro Rail's interest in moving forward on communications-based train control as a replacement for its signaling system. And with Director Zimmerman, who has many responsibilities related to transportation in the Commonwealth, I greatly appreciate her making the time for us to meet and for the follow-up that's occurred since that meeting. We look forward to continuing to share updates of our work with DRPT and, of course, with all three jurisdictions. Moving on to safety certification, during today's meeting, Paul Smith will update us on several ongoing in-depth reviews, including Metro Rail's design of its 8000 series rail cars. I do want to highlight a workshop that WMATA hosted last Wednesday, March 11th, that included the 8000 series rail car project and safety certification teams. Everyone benefited from the collective conversation and review of the project's design timeline. More meetings, of course, will follow, focusing on specific elements of the 8000 series railcar project as it develops. Finally, the WMSC continues its inspection program. This quarter, inspections included roadway worker protection practices in anticipation of Metro Rail's move to its new roadway worker protection program on April 1st, rail control center activities, safety features in train car wash facilities, and track and wayside infrastructure all were subject of inspections. These inspection reports are available on the WMSC's public website, and the reports the inspections provide us with an up-to-date and direct awareness of Metro Rail operations, maintenance and training practices, as well as the condition of Metro Rail infrastructure. After each inspection, we send Metro Rail our inspection report so that they can take any necessary actions to resolve defects found, which we may then verify later with follow-up inspections. So thank you, Chair Hart. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Meyer?
Yes, Commissioner Rouse has raised his hand.
Commissioner Rouse, please.
Not a question, but I'd just like to take a moment to thank both Dr. Meyer and Vice Chair Lobby for all their service. You know, we take for granted safety sometimes, especially in public transit systems and transportation in general. And it's not the most glamorous job in the world, but it's absolutely critical to our day-to-day lives. And thank you both for all of your public service over the years and your efforts here. And I speak for myself and hopefully for everybody else here that we wish you the best. And whatever your next endeavor is, hopefully that's some time to your families and yourselves to do something you enjoy. But we certainly appreciate all the time and effort you've put into this group and everything that preceded this group.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from any of the other commissioners?
I see no other hands, Chair.
Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to our next item, which is audits with an update from, oops, technical difficulty here.
Thank you, Chair Hart. The WMSC is in the process of completing our third triennial cycle of audits. Each audit examines Metrorail's compliance with its Public Transportation Agency safety plan and associated requirements. This occurs on an ongoing basis over a 3-year period, which means at any given time, several audits are occurring, but at different stages in the audit process. Ashley and I will now discuss our latest completed audit. On February 26th, the WMSC issued an audit report on Metrorail's track, structures, and roadway worker protection program. This audit focused on Metrorail's track and structures programs, but also included our annual audit of Metrorail's roadway worker protection program. It is now a Federal Transit Administration requirement under 49 Code of Federal Regulations Part 671 to audit Metro's roadway worker protection program. On our website, you will see this audit has 2 reports that reflect the distinct topic areas and differing audit requirements. Ashley, let's start with this audit scope.
The audit scope included the assessment of both track and structures inspections, maintenance, engineering practices, procedures, and training. This includes maintenance and records for running rails, fasteners, ballast, ties, loading slabs, grout pads, yard switches, insulators, and the third rail. In addition to the track and tunnels, Metro also owns and maintains bridges, culverts, ancillary rooms, and other structures with various capital projects in progress to maintain these assets in a state of good repair. Metro's practices to inspect and maintain these structures were also part of the audit scope. Proper track maintenance and maintaining structures in a state of good repair are essential for safe rail operations. This audit also reviewed Metro's roadway worker protection program, evaluating all elements and its effectiveness at keeping personnel safe while operating on the roadway. We identified several positive practices in track and structures. The first, track and structures training personnel are using improved curriculum materials. The second, all bridge structural inspections are being completed within the required 2-year period. And lastly, track and structures now having adequate personnel addressing rail lubrication, which continues the progress implemented by CAP C229.
The audit also identified 6 findings, 4 related to track and structures and 2 related to roadway worker protection. There were no recommendations from this audit. Ashley and I will walk through each finding and example evidence, starting with the track and structures findings. Finding 1 states that Metrorail track and structures personnel reported performing welding tasks without proper respiratory protection. Metrorail's welding personnel serve an important maintenance role in both corrective and preventative maintenance activities. However, welding by its nature creates certain hazards for the workers who are conducting the welding, such as breathing in toxins that are harmful. Metro has established a respiratory protection program and, if implemented, can reduce the hazard for workers by way of respiratory protection. Metro's existing respiratory protection program manual states that managers and supervisors are responsible for ensuring that the program is properly implemented within their designated areas. In addition to being knowledgeable about the program requirements for their own protection, managers and supervisors must also ensure that the program is understood and adhered to by the employees under their charge. However, in 3 separate interviews for this audit, Metro welders indicated that they have not been provided with any type of personal respiratory protection. 2 of the individual welders stated that they had been fit tested sometime in the fall of 2024. However, at the time of the interviews for this audit conducted in June of 2025, neither received any sort of respiratory protection.
Finding 2 identified that Metrorail personnel are not checking fire extinguishers for inspection dates prior to entering the roadway. Metrorail personnel enter the roadway to perform work that, by its nature, can cause triggering events such as welding, which may lead to a fire. Maintaining a working fire extinguisher is necessary to mitigate the fire risk posed by such work. And furthermore, it is required by Metrorail's procedures. During our observations, we observed a prime mover missing its designated onboard fire extinguisher, and fire extinguisher inspection records were not updated for 3 other fire extinguishers seen in the area. During the 2025 WMSC audit of emergency management and life safety, a finding was issued stating that Metro Rail fire and life safety inspections do not identify and resolve deficiencies with fire life safety equipment and assets within stations. There were 8 instances of issues with fire extinguishers found during observations for that audit, which included fire extinguishers not inspected or signed off, not properly stored, or not properly replaced after use. WMSC inspections have also identified issues with fire extinguishers. A corrective action plan is currently underway, C-298, to address that finding. However, the finding at that time was specific to fire extinguishers in stations, and specifically station inspections, not to the equipment on roadway maintenance machines or transported to work zones. Therefore, a new cap or modified C-298 is necessary. Finding 3 identified that Metro Rail is conducting heat rides at speeds that make it difficult to identify potential heat-related defects and does not have a defined speed threshold for conducting these rides. In the summer months, steel rails are exposed to high temperatures and persistent sun, which can cause the rails to heat up and expand and then potentially warp and buckle as a result. When temperatures are expected to reach 90 degrees Fahrenheit, Metro Rail track inspection personnel conduct what are known as heat rides. These are conducted during revenue service while riding on Class 1 rail cars to visually check the tracks for obvious defects and take temperature measurements. These are supplemental inspections and do not replace the standard track inspections that Metro conducts each week from the roadway. In order for heat ride inspections to effectively serve their safety purpose of identifying heat-related track defects, the inspection must be conducted at a speed that permits visual confirmation of defects. During this audit, the WMSC interviewed personnel responsible for track inspections, which included 2 track repairers and 2 members of the track and structures emergency response team. Personnel stated that Metro Rail was conducting the inspections while operating in automatic train operations, or ATO, and that the designated ATO speeds made it difficult to identify rail defects. This is an unintended consequence of Metro's return to ATO and return to design speeds that took effect last year.
Finding 4 identified that Metro Rail is not verifying its track measuring equipment for accuracy and does not follow manufacturer calibration recommendations for track measuring equipment. Metro's track inspectors conduct regular inspections of track gauge throughout the system using analog gauges to take measurements and note any nonconformities which may need to be addressed. These inspections are necessary to ensure track conditions remain safe, and therefore the equipment used for taking such measurements must be checked to ensure accuracy. Metro's track standards in the TRST 1000 state that the track inspector shall ensure that the track gauge is calibrated and maintained to measure correct track gauge and cross-level readings. Currently, Metro uses 2 different types of gauges, but was only able to provide accuracy or calibration checks for one of the types of gauges. There was also one other issue that was resolved during this audit. During the audit, the WMSC found that Metro was not completing culvert inspections as required by its procedures. Metro Rail Standard Operating Procedure 114-02 for the structures inspection procedures has required that bridges and culverts should be inspected every 24 months. This issue was presented to Metro as a preliminary finding during the audit exit conference. Subsequently, Metro provided additional information and records stating that between October and December of 2023, 16 culverts were inspected. The remaining 16 could not be safely inspected due to small diameters or water-filled conditions. To address this, Metro explored procuring specialized equipment, but ultimately incorporated the work into the bridge inspection contract. Under this contract, the contractor inspected and the remaining 16 culverts between May 19th and June 6th of 2025. Moving forward, the contractor is scheduled to inspect all 32 culverts again in 2027, which maintains compliance with the 24-month inspection cycle required by the Structural Inspection Manual. Metro provided the supporting documentation of the culvert inspection program, including the contract, inspection schedule, and current inspection records for verification by the WMSC. Metro did not meet the 2-year cycle for completing all culverts. However, Metro self-corrected this issue, and importantly, all culverts were inspected. As this issue was properly addressed, including sufficient plans to address future inspection cycles, the WMSC did not issue a finding in this case.
Switching to the RWP findings, finding 1 identified that Metro Rail is not following its own written process to ensure and document that its roadway workers in charge have demonstrated the knowledge and skills required to do their job safely. This finding was issued as an urgent hazard to Metro Rail on September 4th of 2025, but also included within the report as that was the source of the finding. The WMSC audit team found nonconformances while conducting on-site review of documentation of roadway worker protection qualification records. The issues found included manager override of course scores, incorrect or missing test score calculations, failing Metro Rail determined, quote, showstoppers, but passing the course, on-the-job training not being performed as required, and incomplete RWP retest forms. Metro Rail immediately began to address this finding, and CAP C310 was approved on September 30th, 2025. Metro Rail has completed 11 of the 18 required actions to address this finding. This includes revising the current processes related to Level 4 evaluation and practical exams to improve documentation, scoring methods, and quality control reviews, developed new examiner role to have personnel specifically trained on and conducting the practical examinations, retesting and requalifying all 192 affected roadway workers in charge, and adding quality control steps to ensure records and processes are being correctly followed. Metro continues work on this CAP. We appreciate the cooperation and urgency Metro Rail has taken to address these issues and look forward to the completion of this CAP that will ensure a better system for roadway worker protection evaluation and qualification. Finding 2 identified that Metro Rail personnel operating its track geometry vehicles do not use any of the Metro Rail allowable forms of roadway worker protection. Metro Rail's track geometry vehicle, or TGV, is used to inspect track and detect track anomalies. Personnel involved in operating the TGV typically remain on the vehicle for testing. However, if the TGV identifies an anomaly that requires human verification or even repair, personnel must exit the vehicle and enter the roadway. TGV personnel interviewed all stated that they had an absolute block and that this was their form of roadway worker protection. However, that is for the vehicle itself and not identified in Metro Rail's rules as one of the allowable forms of protection. Metro Rail is in the process of implementing its new roadway worker protection program, which has an effective date of April 1, 2026. This new program will incorporate an additional form of roadway worker protection, train coordination protection. This form of protection may be established within segments of track or tracks upon which one train or roadway maintenance machine holds exclusive authority to move, and there are no other conflicting movements. We look forward to working through the CAP process to address this and ensure personnel are properly protected when they enter the roadway.
We are in the process of completing our, someone speaking. No. We are in the process of completing our revenue vehicles and roadway maintenance machines audit. Ashley, could you provide an overview of that audit and where it stands?
Yes, we have completed all the planned interviews and observations. We received additional follow-up documents on March 13th. We are reviewing those documents along with the data gathered during the interviews and observations. We will present our preliminary findings to Metro Rail on April 7th at our exit conference. Our next audit will cover automatic train control, signals, and communication systems. This audit will include also our annual roadway worker protection audit for 2026 as required by 49 CFR 671. The notification and initial request will be sent to Metrorail next month. At the April public meeting, we will discuss that audit's scope in more detail. Thank you. That completes this audit presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Raddick and Ms. Rhodes. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Raddick or Ms. Rhodes?
Secretary Treasurer Conklin has raised his hand.
I have a variety of short questions, I think. On the welding and respiratory protection, I'm assuming there's nothing unique to welding in the metro rail environment that requires that protection. Wouldn't that just be a standard practice for anybody engaged in welding?
Yeah, it would be welding that would be the same as any other rail system, but yeah, there are unique hazards associated with the welding aspects, but nothing unique other than just it's welding and you're dealing with chemicals.
Okay, and then on the fire extinguisher functionality, presence, etc., is there a comprehensive fire extinguisher renewal inspection program, or is it facility by facility, piece of equipment by piece of equipment? I couldn't tell from the report whether there was a systematic review of fire extinguisher viability or whether this is broken up into individual functions where they have fire extinguishers.
There are both agency-wide, it's managed by the fire marshal as well as the emergency management corner of Metro, but there are some fire extinguishers are everywhere from, roadway maintenance machines to the sides of the roadway to different, they just are pervasive everywhere. So there is a little bit of decentralization inherent in that too.
Okay, so that might be something that Metro Rail might think about as an overall program for that. On the track and structures audit, I was really surprised at the number of culverts, and it seemed extraordinarily low. Is there a comprehensive inventory of culverts?
That was the part of the C26, which was one of the first findings we issued as part of the first track audit back in, I believe it was 2020. We had a lengthy back and forth after that audit was issued just to determine that very question, because there are some where they're actually owned by other entities, county or another railroad. So there was a comprehensive effort to make sure that there was a definitive list, and the list that we determined with Metro's help years ago was that there are 32.
Okay, so these are the ones they own and maintain.
Yeah,
but it doesn't
exactly.
mean some other agency's culvert might not be undermining Metro Rail infrastructure.
But it's hard to speak in generalities because each location is very specific, but if it's under the right of way, for example, it's likely owned by Metro. So it's not to say that someone else's culvert that's dumping nearby couldn't cause problems, but it just depends on each location.
So are there culverts, you may not know this, but are they generally the same construction technique, or are they?
They vary in all kinds of size. Some you could walk through if there weren't,
Not just
wasn't
the
water.
material, because familiar with a region-wide problem of raveling corrugated metal culverts.
I don't know all of them. I know there are many that are the precast concrete type variety, but that doesn't mean there aren't a corrugated, like you were saying, the metal type as well.
Okay. Those were my questions. Thank you.
And Chair Commissioner Rouse has raised his hand.
Yes, please, Commissioner Rouse.
Yes, thanks. On the track and structures audit, you mentioned the calibration of the manual measurement devices for gauge, and you also showed the TGV for the track geometry. Just curious, what is WMATA's process? Do they rely primarily on the manual inspections and supplement it with the TGV, or is the track geometry vehicle or other electronic measurements also core to their determination of tracks and tolerance?
So the TGV, the track geometry vehicle, generally hits the entire system twice every 6 months or so, thereabout. And so they rely on that for one level of checks, but they also have their weekly track walks that they're required to do. And it's in those situations, or in a situation where the TGV identifies something that an actual human will get out there with their analog gauges or their stick ruler or both to determine if that is in fact an anomaly or not. So it's sort of both. And there's also there's something called the amber gauge, which is a kind of a rolling gauge that's digital. We don't have an issue with the digital ones, but the analog ones sometimes have been around the system for years, decade or more, and there hasn't been a check to see if they're actually, reporting on the correct where the bubble is in the device, for example.
Okay. And yeah, I think the observation on the use of the TGV is a good one. I mean, this comes up in testing a lot as well. Because they're almost two different camps. When you're on the vehicle and transportation personnel, they don't typically, even if they have right-of-way protection, they've gone through the course and they're certified, they don't typically do a lot of work on the right-of-way, right? If they get off the train, it's to throw a switch or do something like that. And so there's always this kind of ambiguity between those two worlds, between the engineering department and the operations department. And this vehicle kind of blurs that line by having people get off and do checks and things like that. So I think that's a good call in terms of making sure that you're always safe. I know this is something we run into a lot, again, with test vehicles, just is something else to think about here, because it's absolute block's one thing. You have your block, you have the one in front, and usually the one behind as well. But people forget about adjacent track. You don't necessarily have the adjacent track to you. You don't own that necessarily unless you tell dispatch to do that. So, whenever we run test trains in double track territory or multiple track territory, it's always a challenge to remind, especially contractors who are out there jumping off the train, taking measurements and things like that, that doing something on the field side is one thing, but if you get off and need to do something on the track side, the adjacent track side, absolutely need to wait till we get clearance from dispatch to take that track down, because there's no guarantee that there's no train coming in that block. So that's just something I'm glad you came across that and brought that up. I think it's one of those things that kind of slips through the cracks, so to speak, sometimes. And so, between that and any of the discussions you have with testing trains, it's keep that in mind that's also important, is keeping that adjacent track protected if they're going to be doing any work outside of that vehicle itself.
There's one other layer of complication with the TGV is usually there's a chase train. So there's usually it's the guys on the TGV stay on the TGV, and there's a work crew ready in the wings on the separate vehicle that would hop out and do some look-sees or other measurements. So that all has to be factored into what they come up with.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm guessing they're not under signal control at that point, right? It's probably all manual. And so making sure that they're communicating so the next train behind them isn't up on top of them when they're out of the train looking at something is pretty critical there. And we've seen incidents like that with just general MOW crews in the past. So good point.
Thank you for those questions. Any other questions for Mr. Raddick and Ms. Rhodes from the commissioners?
I see no other hands, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silva. And seeing none, then we'll move on to the next item of the agenda, which is corrective action plans. We will now take up corrective action plans with an update from, Mr. Rhodes and Mr. Raddick. Ms. Rhodes and Mr. Raddick.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Corrective action plans are an opportunity for Metro and the WMSC to arrive at a collaborative solution to an identified safety problem. The vast majority of corrective action plans, more than 300 at this point, are indeed collaborative and result in a meaningful safety improvement. Davis and I would like to tell you about a few successes that have resulted from this collaborative CAP process. To start us off, let's talk about railcar camera and audio recording. Historically, the legacy railcars did not possess camera or audio recording capabilities. This includes the 3000 series that still roam the system. The 7000 series changed that and features limited outward and in-cab video capability, but no audio capability. Now, for the first time, by way of the WMSC's CAP C-146, all 182 6000 series railcars have both video and audio capabilities. This includes video and audio in the operator cab, outward video, and video in the passenger areas. This offers tremendous benefits when investigating safety events. Up to this point, if the safety event involved a 6000 series car, There was no camera or audio available to corroborate, identify, or use as a tool for learning about the event. The American Public Transportation Association has long recommended such capabilities, and the 6000 series now has them. Great work by Metro.
As noted previously, the 7000 series includes some video capability, but the cameras are of an older design compared to today's offerings, and therefore the image is fairly grainy. Depending on the lighting conditions and other environmental factors like sun, the camera image becomes even less useful, and there are no audio capabilities. CAP C146 will result in a 7000 series upgrade as well. However, none of the 7000 series have received the upgrade to date. The good news is now that the 6000 series is complete, the effort to upgrade the existing equipment on the 7000 series can be prioritized. For this work, WMATA reports procurement is in progress. Staying with the 7000 series, but now discussing the present overhaul, we have another success story to discuss.
In 2021, the WMSC identified that the 7000 series rehabilitation work was progressing without involvement from Metro's safety department. To address this issue, WMATA created a Certified Items List, or CIL, which defined in extremely detailed specificity the items involved in the required rehabilitation work for the 7000 series. CIL listed maintenance program items included things like the master controller, friction brake equipment, propulsion and control components, truck equipment, couplers, HVAC equipment, and truck assemblies. WMATA also provided records of their internal safety certification review committee approving their scheduled maintenance program. This scheduled maintenance will eventually come to the entire 7000 series fleet.
How many of the 7000 series have undergone the scheduled maintenance program and received safety department sign-off?
10% of the 7000 series railcars. Phrased another way, 75 of the 748 total 7000 series railcars. For each railcar, the safety department ensures that all steps have been followed. The WMSC will continue to monitor the 7000 series scheduled maintenance program through our risk-based inspection and other oversight activities.
Switching gears, I will take us back to a finding from the WMSC's first fitness for duty audit, where the WMSC identified an opportunity for Metro to provide more robust medical oversight by including contractual requirements that contractors must meet WMATA's medical and fitness for duty standards. These requirements are things that personnel working in safety critical positions like train operation, track maintenance, power or signal mechanics, among other roles, must ensure to do or to disclose to ensure they are able to safely perform those duties. For example, limits on the defined number of continuous working hours, the requirement to declare to a supervisor if you are fatigued or otherwise unable to perform your duties safely, and the need to disclose both prescription and over-the-counter medication to ensure nothing could interfere with the person's ability to safely perform their job.
There is now defined required language and a written process with a required cadence that is baked into WMATA's procurement software to ensure it is followed for contracts with safety-sensitive functions. The bottom line is that previously there was no process or requirement for contractors performing safety-sensitive work to commit in writing to ensuring their personnel follow WMATA fitness for duty requirements. Contractors who fill safety-sensitive functions are now required to submit various commitments and documents in writing to follow WMATA-defined safety requirements at the time of contract procurement and biannually thereafter. WMATA also provided evidence of this new requirement in their electronic contract procurement software, as well as details of procurement activities relevant to this requirement for years following its creation.
Those were 3 corrective action plan success stories. And were there any more notable happenings with corrective action plans related work since the last meeting, Ashley?
We are proud of these safety improvements, and Metro should be as well. However, there are a few corrective actions that WMATA has not engaged in that collaborative corrective action process. We endeavor to work with Metro in a collaborative manner because that leads to the best safety outcomes. When Metro fails to engage, we are empowered to ensure that identified safety deficiencies do in fact get addressed. This is why the WMSC was created in the first place. Since our last meeting, we have issued 4 notices of noncompliance to WMATA regarding their inaction on 4 separate corrective action plans. Each of these was sent to WMATA on February 5th, 2026, and may be viewed at wmsc.gov under Official Actions. One of these notices pertains to our 2025 Control Center audit, and the other 3 relate to the 2025 Elevators and Escalators audit. Each of these notices came about because WMATA refused to provide a required corrective action plan to address these audit findings.
We'll first discuss the notice of noncompliance regarding Microsoft Teams chats. First, this is a legitimate business tool that we all use nowadays, and Metrorail's Control Center is no different.
The Control Center uses Teams calls and chats routinely, but when a safety event occurs, the Teams chats are a potential way to learn about the event because it is another record that can supply facts about the event. CCTV, interviews, and other types of evidence also perform this function, but Teams chats are a new opportunity for Metro to fully understand what happened during an event and why. Conversations at every level of Metrorail have been unsuccessful at convincing Metrorail to provide a corrective action plan to address this finding. This is unfortunate, and therefore the WMSC was compelled to issue a notice of noncompliance.
The other 3 notices of noncompliance all relate to findings from our recent elevator escalator audit. 2 of these, Metrorail has refused to provide caps to address due to their claim that these issues pertain to WMATA's ongoing legal challenge of the WMSC's authority to oversee occupational safety or worker safety related issues. These are findings related to personnel entering elevator pits with standing water and active electrical currents, and the lack of adequate fall protection requirements training.
The final notices of noncompliance are for findings that WMATA is not properly displaying elevator escalator certificate documentation on site as is required. Regular safety inspections of elevators and escalators are required by the laws of the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. Once completed, and if the elevator or escalator passes the inspection, the certificate is displayed to provide assurance to the public that the elevator or escalator is safe to use, as evidenced by the posting of a current certificate. The District of Columbia Building Code and Virginia Maintenance Code allow for certificates to either be posted near the equipment or available for review in an office on the premises. Maryland's Code for Public Safety requires that the certificate be posted in or on the elevator unit. WMATA is refusing to address this finding as they claim this should be overseen by the local jurisdictions whose requirements are at issue. Not creating a corrective action plan in response to a WMSC issued finding is in direct violation of the WMSC program standard and leaves these serious safety concerns unaddressed, putting both workers and the traveling public at risk of these identified issues impacting the safety of their interaction with the WMATA system.
And so, Ashley, what are the next steps at this point?
WMATA has acknowledged receipt of these notices, and there has been no further correspondence on these issues. These notices are first intended to make sure that Metro fully understands the issues and how to address the noncompliance. We remain at this stage and hope that Metro will appreciate the safety concerns that are going unaddressed. That completes our corrective action presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes and Mr. Raddick. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Rhodes and Mr. Raddick?
I see no hands, Chair.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item of the agenda, oversight of Metro Rail safety certification. We will now hear updates on the WMSC Safety Certification Oversight Program from the WMSC Director of Systems Engineering, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, can you please provide that update?
Thank you, Chair Hart. I will provide an update on the WMSC's ongoing safety certification oversight activities, including the current status of key projects, recent developments, and areas that continue to remain a focus of our oversight efforts, to include ongoing work on Metro Rail signals and communications. I want to begin today by describing an operational gap within Metro Rail's loss of shunt procedures that we learned of during our day-to-day rail safety oversight work, and the actions we took, which led Metro Rail to detect and mitigate the safety exposure. A loss of shunt is an indication that a train may not be properly detected by the track circuit system, meaning a train could be on the roadway, but the rail traffic control is not aware of its location. This is a critical safety function. Due to the loss of shunt alarm notifications in the Metro Rail Control Center, Metro Rail began following its loss of shunt operation procedure within the control center to allow for controlled movement of trains through the affected area. When such loss of shunt alarms activate in the rail control center, Metro Rail follows steps to assess whether it is in fact a verifiable loss of shunt condition. If it is confirmed, then Metro Rail is required to report a verified loss of shunt to the WMSC. To be clear, after the investigation into the event I will describe, it was determined that there was no loss of shunt. On February 20th, 2026, the WMSC was notified of a red signal overrun near West Falls Church Station. Metro Rail followed the necessary steps to notify us of this incident, and our investigations team started their investigative activities immediately. During the initial investigation activities, our investigations team became aware of a possible loss of shunt event that Metro Rail was also addressing. The loss of shunt alarm was denoted in an area between Vienna Metro Rail Station and Dunloring Metro Rail Station. When we learned that Metro Rail was conducting its analysis to determine if this was a verified loss of shunt condition, the WMSC team raised several specific questions about the work or adjustments to the train control equipment that preceded this alarm, what protocols were followed by Metro Rail throughout the event, and requesting that Metro Rail review and validate its procedures in light of a procedural gap identified as a result of this event. In order to answer the WMSC's inquiries, the Metro Rail Communications and Signaling team conducted an investigation. The investigation determined that there was no actual loss of shunt and that train detection remained intact throughout the event. Instead, the alarms were traced to a temporary configuration installed on a remote terminal unit, or RTU. This work was done the previous night and was in preparation for work expected to be completed at a later date. Remote terminal units, or RTUs, collect real-time status and measurement data from wayside equipment, including signal aspects and signal lamp failures, track circuit occupancy, switch machine position, lock status, and faults, traction power voltage, current and breaker status, and environmental conditions such as intrusion detection, and report this information to the Rail Operations Control Center. That temporary configuration that was done overnight on February 20th affected how the track circuit information was reported to the Ames monitoring system, creating the appearance of a loss of shunt even though the underlying vital signaling system continued to function normally. While the investigation confirmed that signaling system protection remained operational, Metro Rail's review identified a procedural gap related to verifying configuration changes with the Metro Rail Control Center before personnel leave the train control room in the field. WMATA is implementing procedural controls requiring personnel who perform configuration changes to remain on site into revenue service and formally verify system status with the Metro Rail Control Center before leaving. This event demonstrates how the WMSC's oversight functions in practice. Our internal program teams and experts exchange information as an event arose. WMSC staff asked Metro Rail teams targeted technical questions. The WMSC reviewed the circumstances and validated with Metro Rail to ensure that the underlying procedural issue was identified and corrected. The goal is not simply to document events after they occur, but to ensure that lessons learned are incorporated into procedures so similar conditions do not reoccur. I will pause briefly to see if commissioners have any questions before I continue.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, Chair, Secretary Treasurer Conklin has raised his hand.
Yes, please.
Mr. Smith, I was just wondering if you could explain again how the temporary configuration resulted in this false loss of shunt report. I had trouble following your description.
Yeah, so in this particular case, at this location, there's work ongoing to replace the remote terminal unit. These remote terminal units that are in service are very aged. Some of them date back to the opening of the system. So there was a Y cable, basically a cable that would connect the two remote terminal units to the active system. And so in this case, this Y cable was malfunctioning, or the new RTU was malfunctioning. And so the track circuit indications or the occupancy indications were not being related back to the control center. And so ATC responded, they removed the Y cable, put the old RTU back into service, and that cleared the fault.
So what should they have done to avoid that from happening?
Well, like we've identified here, if the individuals who were performing this update or this work overnight had verified with the control center that the board or their AIMS system was displaying indications correctly, this possibly could have been avoided.
Got it. Thank you.
Any further questions from any of the commissioners? I have a question that comes to mind from our look when I was at the NTSB of, I think it was the Fort Totten accident, where there was concern about false alarms. And I think that concern manifested itself in saying, when you received a warning on the master screen of a loss of shunt, did you do anything about it? And I think the answer was no, because we had so many of them, we couldn't even begin to touch, because a lot of them were false alarms. And so I'm wondering, are you still seeing those false alarm issues?
I'll let others answer the question, but I'll just jump in and say that your memory of the Fort Totten accident is correct. That during the time of that accident, a number of years ago, of course, the loss of shunt tool and the alarming methodology was almost essentially an experimental product that was still being worked on and developed, and it was something that signals engineers were very interested in bringing fully to the control center. But it as you recall correctly, it was giving a lot of false alarms back in that time, which is not unusual for brand new software. That's a long time ago, and the tool has undergone a lot of revisions and modifications since then. And Mr. Smith can tell that story better than I can.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, the loss of shunt tool now has matured quite a lot from the Fort Totten accident. That tool works a lot better than it did back then, and the loss, in this case, the loss of shunt procedures, the policies and procedures that are in place when a suspected loss of shunt alarm is delivered to the control center were followed, and the trains were moving through that area using absolute block protection.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Any further questions for Mr. Smith?
I see no other hands, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Smith, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Hart. I'll now turn to the next topic. Moving on to another area for automatic train operations, we continue to work closely to oversee Metrorail's work and request enhancements in its efforts when needed on automatic train operations. When WMSC concurred that Metrorail may use automatic train operations system-wide in 2025, both Metrorail and the WMSC recognized that ongoing monitoring would be necessary to evaluate how the system performs in revenue operations. Train stopping accuracy and station overrun trends have been particular areas of attention. A station overrun occurs when a train does not stop within the defined platform limits and therefore cannot properly service the station. These events carry safety implications, including risks to roadway workers, potential equipment impacts, passenger concerns, and complications during emergency response. Since system-wide ATO activation, both Metrorail and the WMSC have observed an increase in station overruns compared to historical experience, and the issue has remained an active technical engagement area involving WMATA engineering, operations, and vehicle personnel and WMSC staff. Metrorail has been evaluating each station overrun by reviewing vehicle data, wayside information, and operational conditions. Through this work, several contributing factors have been identified, including railcar braking characteristics, software performance, track conditions, and operational factors. To address these issues, Metrorail has implemented a structured mitigation strategy focusing on 4 areas: analysis of individual events, operational and training improvements, temporary mitigation measures, and engineering verification, and longer-term engineering and system modifications. These efforts remain ongoing, and both Metrorail and the WMSC continue evaluating whether the mitigations are producing measurable improvement. The WMSC continues to view station overruns as a significant safety concern requiring sustained oversight. At the outset of ATO expansion, the WMSC did not determine that station overruns were acceptable. Rather, the WMSC accepted WMATA's interim safety mitigations and longer-term corrective strategy as the basis for allowing ATO operations to continue, while requiring the agency to remain engaged in reducing the hazard. Our safety oversight since that time is focused on ensuring WMATA is meeting those commitments. WMATA's mitigation work has involved multidisciplinary efforts across vehicle engineering, signals, and operations. These efforts include staged software releases, engineering modification instructions, or EMIs, which are formal, controlled documents used to authorize, define, and implement approved engineering changes to existing equipment, systems, or configurations in safety-critical environments following an engineering review. Track and wayside adjustments, and ongoing review of location-specific overrun patterns. Software changes on a phased and deliberate schedule are essential so that Metrorail can evaluate incremental changes and determine whether those changes are producing measurable improvement. Metrorail is learning that correcting station overruns is more complex than a single operational action or software update, particularly for the 7000 series railcars. Because the 7000 series fleet did not accumulate extensive ATO operating experience prior to system-wide rollout, both Metrorail and the WMSC had to learn more about the 7000 series fleet's behavior in ATO through real-world operation, trend analysis, and repeated technical review. There are areas where progress is evident, such as improvements in human performance factors as operators gain familiarity with ATO, but the broader technical challenges associated with vehicle and system performance remain the central focus of ongoing mitigations. Our oversight will continue, and the WMSC staff will engage with WMATA routinely through technical exchanges, document reviews, inspections, data analysis, and follow-up across multiple programs. The oversight is sustained, frequent, and evidence-based, not conducted at a distance, and we will continue to provide updates on the WMSC as the WMSC identifies changes, positive or negative, in Metrorail's work addressing station overruns. I will pause for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions for Mr. Smith relating to ATO?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Rouse has raised his hand.
Commissioner, please.
Yeah, more of a comment. I think we're learning a lot from the rollout of ATO back into service, right? And I think it's just, for us and WMATA, it's probably a good example of processes and procedures and methodology to follow for whatever the next gen train control systems are going to be. And you've kind of alluded to it. It's not, you can't just go make a change and go throw it out there, right? You have to be careful that configuration management is key, and making one change could lead to impacts on two or three other functions. And so it is not as easy as just moving a wire or put a new line of code in there. And I think hopefully, if nothing else out of this whole exercise between the two entities, it sets us up well for what works and what doesn't when we're trying to roll out a new system, especially when you're operating an existing railway. You can't just shut it down and start it up new. There's going to be a lot of hours put into troubleshooting the new system and making sure it's reliable and it functions as intended. So I think you're doing a good job on this one. I know it's, like I said, it's no easy solution out there, but if nothing else, hopefully this can carry over to future efforts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Rouse.
Well, that demonstrates the big picture lesson learned, which is that whenever you design a system, you need to include not only smart system designers, but also ultimate users, people who are affected by the system redesign, because you need to know whether it's going to work for their everyday life and not just, is it a good idea? It's got to be a good idea that's a workable good idea. So that's the lesson that's learned, is you can't just put out smart designers. You need to have people who are going to actually use the system, and also to some extent people who are going to maintain the system as well, to make sure that the system is usable by everybody, maintainable, has a long life, et cetera, et cetera. So lesson learned big time.
Absolutely.
Further questions from Mr. Smith?
I see no other hands, Chair.
Okay,
All
in
right.
that case, we'll move on to the 8000 series, Mr. Smith.
All right, thank you, Chair Hart. The WMSC is also continuing its in-depth review of WMATA's 8000 series railcar safety certification process. The focus of this oversight is not on evaluating individual design choices, but on validating whether WMATA's safety certification process is being carried out as required by its own requirements to identify safety hazards early and iteratively as a project moves from preliminary engineering to final design to construction to testing to system integration. This includes reviewing how hazards are identified, how they are analyzed by subject matter experts, how mitigation decisions are made, and how those decisions are documented and traced. To make this review more effective, the WMSC staff is focused on topics like crashworthiness, control of electromagnetic interferences, event recorders, and onboard monitoring systems. In this initial refined set of documents, this will enable the WMSC to better gather information on crash energy management of the rail cars and how the electromagnetic interferences are being minimized to prevent wayside to onboard communications errors, and validating onboard monitoring systems are aligned with lessons learned from accident investigations and industry best practice. This focused approach will be expanded to give us a full understanding of how the railcar design is mitigating identified hazards. In addition to this ongoing oversight work, the WMSC staff participated in a technical workshop with WMATA on March 11th, which focused on elements of the 8000 series safety certification effort. The purpose of the workshop was to provide WMSC staff with a detailed, contemporaneous walkthrough of WMATA's verification approach, which is being applied specifically for the 8000 series project. The workshop provided an opportunity for the WMSC to provide a perspective into how we conduct our oversight of safety certification to the team made up of representatives on the 8000 series project. The WMSC explained how our work shows up exponentially to the Metro Rail team. The exchanges during the workshop gave an opportunity for Metro Rail project team to give a deeper dive into how Metro Rail subject matter expert input is leveraged during the design reviews. The workshop was very productive in strengthening our working relationship with the project team. The WMSC staff emphasized the need for timely access to supporting materials necessary to complete this review efficiently. Documentation tied to safety certification oversight must be provided promptly so that the WMSC staff can evaluate whether decisions are being made by the appropriate technical personnel and in accordance with WMATA's established safety certification framework. The WMSC will continue pressing for complete traceability and the level of technical support required to complete this oversight work. I will pause briefly for any questions about the 8000 series rail cars.
Any questions from any of the commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions from any of the commissioners regarding 8000 series?
Yes, Secretary Treasurer Conklin's raised his hand.
Yes, please.
Not so much a question, but it seems like this is a change in approach and tone from both WMSC and Metro Rail on this, and I've been concerned that the opportunity to constructively engage in this was passing us by, but it seems like that has changed, and I'm thankful to hear that if indeed that's the case.
I believe that is the case, Secretary Treasurer Conklin. We seem to have made some connection with key members of the project staff during this workshop, and WMATA had indicated to us that they're planning to hold another of these workshops and possibly many more to kind of go through the 8000 series railcar safety certification system by system.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Smith regarding 8000?
I see no other hands.
Okay, thank you.
All right. In summary, staff remain actively engaged in oversight related to automatic train operation and station overruns, the 8000 series safety certification program, the safety certification program overall, and ongoing evaluations of various system conditions that require a safety evaluation. Across all these areas, the WMSC's role is to ensure that Metro Rail addresses safety concerns through disciplined, technically supported, and sustainable processes. The WMSC will continue providing updates as major milestones occur so that our commissioners and the public remain informed about progress and emerging safety issues that remain under our review. Thank you, Chair Hart. That concludes this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Any further questions for Mr. Smith?
I see no hands, sir.
Thank you. Now it's time to look at some safety event investigations. We will hear presentations on all of the reports and then consider a single motion on all of them collectively. If any commissioner wishes to remove a report from the group that will be considered collectively, please indicate that at the end of the presentation of that report. Mr. Quigley, please commence the reports, the accident investigation reports.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 414 involves an improper rail vehicle movement that occurred on March 26, 2025 at approximately 4:56 a.m. The rail vehicle operator of train 103, an 8-car 7000 series train, moved from Shady Grove Yard lead onto the main line towards Shady Grove Station without authorization. Prior to the movement, the Shady Grove Yard interlocking operator had granted the operator an absolute block to signal Alpha 1532. After stopping at the signal, the operator attempted twice to contact Shady Grove Terminal Supervisor, but received no response, as terminal supervisors are not on duty overnight and the morning supervisor had not yet arrived. Instead of contacting the control center for authorization, the operator proceeded past signal Alpha 1532 and continued towards Shady Grove Station. At the time, another train 101, was properly berthed on track 1 at the station. As the train 103 approached the platform, it had lost speed commands but continued moving toward the station, creating the potential for a collision. Once train 101 departed at approximately 5 a.m., train 103 properly berthed at the platform and opened its doors. The operator again attempted to contact the terminal supervisor to request permission to depart at the scheduled time. When the terminal supervisor later arrived at 5:07 a.m. and determined that train 103 had entered the main line without authorization, the operator was intercepted and removed from service for post-incident toxicology testing in accordance with Metro Rail procedures. The probable cause of this event was the rail vehicle operator's failure to follow established procedures by moving past signal Alpha 1532 and onto the main line without authorization. This includes the operator's failure to contact the control center when the terminal supervisor could not be reached, and the interlocking operator's failure to direct the operator to contact the control center. I'll pause for questions.
Any questions regarding this safety report?
Yes, Chair, we have several hands, so we'll start with Vice Chair Lobby.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Is the operator that was involved in this incident, does he not know that the terminal supervisor is not on duty? Is this standard? I mean, shouldn't he know that?
I don't know if they know the exact times, sir, but the rule would be to contact central control.
Okay. And what time does the terminal supervisor go on duty?
It's usually 5 a.m.
5 a.m. And this occurred right around the time of the terminal supervisor going on duty, I assume.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Rouse?
Thanks. So I noted in the WMATA investigation or investigative report that they had mentioned that this was the first time that this operator had been operating out of the Shady Grove yard. I'm just wondering, between that and any summary of the investigation that was done, if there was any more information there. Do we think there's any contribution from experience? Or were they actually certified through the process? Should they even have been on the main line? Did they interview them? Did they say why they decided to cut out and go even without talking to somebody first? Any insight there, or is it still too fresh?
No, I mean, they were definitely certified. We check the certification and training records. It's the first thing we do when we have an incident like this. We request that information. So I don't recall what the operator said. It's usually, I think there's a summary in the investigation, but we could probably just chalk this up to them being brand new and just assuming that the terminal supervisor was there and not contacting central control, as required. But yeah, that's about it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about some of these before, especially unauthorized movements and red signals, that's one of those issues that's harder to pin down. It's one thing. Training is one thing, and making sure they get enough time behind the throttle is one thing that you can kind of wrap your head around. But even in this scenario, even if it was new, to not have contacted someone to get authority to move past a situation like that, and especially to cut out, right? I mean, that typically takes you to a different level in terms of your actions. And so it's just, I don't know. I find that one troubling in terms of, is this common? Is it, how well is it drilled into them in terms of training that you just don't do this? If you have no authority to go past where you are, either a zero speed command or a red signal in front of you, you don't move the train until you've confirmed with someone that that's appropriate to do. And normally you record it, right? You write down the timestamp that you get that authority. So I find this one troubling. I don't know. I'm hoping we don't see a lot of this. And we've had a lot of discussions on this in terms of trying to tamp down these incidents. But I mean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. I know you've been struggling with this for a while. It's just, this one to me seems one of the more difficult one to accept in terms of why they would do this.
Right. I mean, I would say the moving without speed commands is still an issue that Metro faces, but they have increased their auditing throughout the week, setting up certain areas where they've removed speed commands from train operators and ensure that they contact, central control as required.
And yeah, that may be good. I mean, we don't talk a lot about auditing and what we would call 217 in the railroad world, but operational audits, that may be another tool there that we need to think about how that's being used. And it's good to hear that they are expanding that, because that may be one way to weed out those that are, whether this is force of habit or way that we're always trained. There's got to be a way to kind of isolate this practice and cut it down, right? So I appreciate it. Thanks.
And Chair Secretary Treasurer Conklin has his hand raised.
Yes, please.
I was wondering if you could comment on the communication, if any, there is between the Shady Grove Yard interlocking operator and the terminal supervisor and the control center. Are these all isolated communication channels? By not knowing the duties and responsibilities, if I were the train operator, I think the first thing I might have checked with was the person I talked to last, if I didn't know what to do. But I'm curious about the architecture of that communication structure between those different control points and whether there's coordination, or if they can hear these conversations among each other, or if this is all isolated.
Right. So the yards and terminals share channels. So there's usually 2 channels per yard. The first channel might be the interlocking, the yard operator, and then the other channel would be the terminal supervisor. So they can, if they have both of them turned on, set to the channels, that they can hear each other. The control center does not listen to the terminal or interlocking channels. So.
Okay. So this operator just seemed overly eager to start service on time.
It appears that way. I think I do recall that there was a lunar. I think that was one of their responses, that they had a lunar signal, and they just continued towards the platform until they lost speed commands.
Okay. I share Commissioner Rouse's general concerns here, and I guess if you had to identify a cause, it might be that the terminal supervisor didn't show up on time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any more questions from Mr. Quigley regarding this event?
I see no further hands.
Okay, then moving on to the next one, Mr. Quigley, Whiskey 0415.
Absolutely. Investigation Whiskey 415 involves another improper rail vehicle movement that occurred on March 28, 2025. The rail vehicle operator of train 114, operating in automatic train operation mode on the red line from Nomad Gallaudet Station towards Union Station, moved the train without speed commands and without authorization. As the train approached Union Station on track 2, the rail traffic controller attempted to contact the operator to instruct them to reduce speed for schedule adherence. When the operator did not respond, the rail traffic controller removed the train's speed commands. The train subsequently stopped just before Union Station platform. Let's see, make sure, yep. And then instead of contacting the control center as required when a train loses speed commands, the operator switched from ATO to manual mode and entered stop and proceed mode without permission from Metro Rail Control Center. The operator then moved the train approximately 650 feet to Union Station platform and service the station. During the investigation, the operator acknowledged that they intentionally moved the train despite being familiar with the requirement to obtain permission from the rail traffic controller before doing so. The operator also admitted that they did not visually confirm whether another train was ahead, creating the potential risk of a collision or derailment. A rail operations supervisor later intercepted the train and observed the operator while the train continued towards Shady Grove Station, where the operator was removed from service for post-incident toxicology testing. This event was reported to the WMSC nearly 4 hours after it occurred, outside the required 2-hour reporting time frame due to the delayed notification from the control center to the Metro Rail Safety Information Officer, or the SIO. The probable cause of this event was the rail vehicle operator's failure to follow established procedures by moving the train without speed commands or authorization. Underlying causes include complacency and noncompliance with operating rules requiring operators to contact the rail traffic controller and obtain permission before moving a train after losing speed commands, as well as delayed reporting of the safety event. And I'll pause for any questions.
Vice Chair Lobby
Question.
has raised his hand.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is, again, these two incidents are similar. And in both cases, the train operator basically, bypassed the requirements and moved to a manual mode without permission. And I'm not puzzled, but I'm concerned where some of the reaction from Washington Metro is to have these personnel receive additional refresher training. Isn't going from a train operation to a manual mode without permission, isn't that kind of like sticking your finger in a light socket? Doesn't everybody already know that? I mean, if you're gonna have refresher training, what do? I mean, you say, listen, stupid, you don't do this. How do you train someone not to follow a fundamental requirement for operating a metro train?
I don't know if I can respond to that.
But isn't that fundamental? Isn't that something they hammer into them from day one, that you must have permission to do this and that? I mean, why would someone just disregard a fundamental rule like that? Is there any reason, or is it that speed signals are lost all the time, and they get sick of calling up the controller and saying, I need permission to go to manual? What's the underlying reason that they would ignore a fundamental safety regulation like that?
I don't have an answer for you, sir. I know with the movement to ATO, prior to ATO and red line, if a train lost speed commands within the platform limits, they had permission to properly berth. They didn't have to get permission from the control center as long as they were within the platform limits. So if they stopped short, they didn't need permission. They could adjust their train as long as they got to the ACAR marker and they could service. When they switched to ATO, things changed because they wanted to document that that issue that they lost speed commands. The train came to a stop short of the ACAR marker, so it was more of a documentation process. So they took away the operator's freedom. So I know that was part of this retraining, that you're an ATO now. When you lose speed commands short of the ACAR marker and you switch to manual, you have to contact the control center to let them know for just documentation purposes and ATC engineering.
Another, that might be, part of the explanation. Another issue that I'm looking at here is this action by the rail traffic controller when he couldn't contact the operator, that he basically removed the train speed commands. Is this standard procedure for
there are turnbacks along the roadway that they can take. It's like a signal to them, to the control center. It looks like a signal. It's green or red. And if they cancel it and they make it red, it's not a signal out in the field. It's just a signal to them. It takes away the speed commands. It is a way to, it's a tool for the controllers to use for schedule adherence, for emergency purposes, to allow the train operator to know when they've cleared an interlocking. So it is a tool that can be used. So if they need to get a hold of an operator or keep an operator on a platform, that's a tool that they utilize.
Is this is this common knowledge with an operator that this may happen, that the controller may remove a speed signal and that means to contact them? Is this common, or is this just one individual's method of taking care of problems with the radio communication?
No, it's very common. It's very common, and most of the time you would take that turn back away if a train operator was running a few minutes early. You don't want them sitting at the station for 4 or 5 minutes, so you tell them to hold for 2, and then you give them a permissive block to that turn back that you took away from them. So that means they have to travel to that turn back at restricted speed or less because of the speed command. So again, everybody knows the controllers remove turnbacks to manage their schedule.
The moral of the story.
So there should have been no surprises here.
The moral of the story is, if you have developed a remedy and you've been using it and it's not working and you're still having the same problem, then you haven't dug deep enough.
You could say that.
So one final question I have is, in your write-up here, it says there's no comprehensive rule or procedure to govern operators in any other instances where the terminal blockhouse is unstaffed. And this goes to this first report. Can you explain a little bit more what's missing in the rules and procedures?
Let me see.
Mr. Quickly, I can okay. Jump in. So this Shady Grove improper movement where the train operator moved, they were speaking to the interlocking operator and then the terminal supervisor wasn't there, and then they moved on their lunar signal. There is no specific rule that says contact the control center if the terminal supervisor does not answer, or there's nothing that says that. Now it would be implied because you can't move your train you're not supposed to move your train without speed commands, and that train did not. has speed commands when it moved. So actually operating practices after this investigation, we've been talking to them. They also identified a gap in that rule. So they want to actually write it in black and white. So it's very clear. There's no confusion. There's nothing vague about, okay, I'm used to going from the yard to the terminal, but what if someone doesn't answer me? Then what do I do? So they're actually writing it into the rules.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Chair Commissioner Rouse has raised his hand.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thanks. And, I can tell Mr. Quickly was thrilled when these came up that he had to come and explain 2 more of these incidents to us. And I think, obviously, you're not behind the throttle there. We understand that. And I think you're probably just as frustrated as we are with some of these reoccurring events and some of the underlying issues here. And that kind of gets to my question and what Vice Chair Lobby was talking about earlier. And granted the fact that we've had a lot of years working with certified engineers and certification programs. And forgive me if you've answered this question before. My memory is terrible. My wife would confirm that if she was here. But are there any cardinal rules for these operators that, typically in other operations, if you break one of these rules, if you move a train without authority, and there's very limited circumstances where you have that type of freedom, it's usually when you're under a manual order and you're doing a test train. So are there any cardinal rules where these folks would lose their ability to be an operator, or do they just get retrained and thrown back into the mix?
I don't believe the speed command. Metro does have some cardinal rules. It's through the RWP program. I would have to defer to Mr. Walker if this was a kind of a cardinal rule for train operators, but the way ARTRA, the Rail Transportation Department, has discipline set up is it's a points-based system. So each kind of infraction is a point or 2 points or however they see fit, and then you kind of get this good behavior credit as well, where you haven't had any issues for a while, or after a certain amount of years things fall off. So that's how they handle discipline. So it would, if you're asking if an operator moves a train without speed commands once or twice, if they're going to lose their job, no, it's going to be based off anything else that they've been involved in the points.
Thank you. I think that's kind of insightful just in and of itself. We all drive in this area and we know points-based merit systems don't always assure that you know what you're doing behind the wheel of a car, so much less on a train. So I do appreciate it. Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Quigley?
I see no additional hands.
Okay, seeing none, Ms. Keyros, I believe it's your turn. Whiskey 0416.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0416 involves a collision that occurred on March 26, 2025 at approximately 10:11 p.m. at Shady Grove Station. An individual fell onto track 1 after stumbling backward and losing their balance. The individual remained on the roadway lying on their back. At approximately 10:14 p.m., train 122, a 6-car train operating in manual mode, entered the station and made contact with the individual. The train stopped at the 8-car marker and serviced the station. The rail vehicle operator was unaware that the train had made contact with the person and departed the station. Closed-circuit television later showed that after the train cleared the area, the individual stood up unassisted, climbed back onto the platform, and boarded a train on the opposite track. While aboard that train, a rail vehicle operator observed that individual was bleeding and notified the terminal supervisor, who requested medical assistance. The station manager and rail vehicle operator escorted the individual off the train, and Montgomery County Fire Rescue Services transported them to a local hospital for treatment. The probable cause of this event was the individual losing their balance and falling onto the roadway at Shady Grove Station, resulting in contact with the train. Thank you. I can pause for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Keyros. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners regarding this report?
Yes, the vice chair has raised his hand.
Please.
Yes, thank you. This is a interesting event. I'm wondering where the individual was when the train entered the station, that the operator didn't see him. and basically service the platform. Was this individual completely under the train when the platform was serviced between the gauge of the rail? Where was he?
Yeah, I would need to reference exactly. I don't know, Mr. Quigley, if you remember exactly where he was.
I believe half their body was on top of. So if you're coming like one of the left running rail, if you're an operator, and the rest of the body was kind of underneath the area of refuge, like the platform overhang.
Okay, so he was essentially off to the side of the gauge,
Yes.
and was in the area of refuge under the platform a little bit. Is that correct?
Some of their body, yes.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. But thank you for that.
Thank you for the question. Any more questions for Ms. Keyrose?
More hands, Chair.
Do you have another report, Ms. Keyrose?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0417 involves another collision that occurred on March 12, 2025 at approximately 3:49 p.m. at West Hyattsville Station when an individual intentionally entered the path of an approaching train. Prior to the event, the individual entered the station and waited on the platform on track 1. As train 501 entered the station, the individual stood from a bench, ran toward the train, and jumped into its path, resulting in a collision. The rail vehicle operator immediately notified the radio rail traffic controller in the control center. The rail power was de-energized, and a rail operations supervisor, car maintenance, road mechanic, and emergency response team were dispatched to the scene. Prince George's County Fire and Emergency Medical Services and Metro Transit Police Department were also notified. During the initial emergency notification, the incorrect station location was provided to emergency responders, but the error was corrected during a follow-up call. A second rail vehicle operator on board the train conducted a ground walk-around inspection and confirmed that the individual was located beneath the lead rail car. Emergency responders removed the individual from the roadway and transported them to a local hospital. The probable cause of this event was the individual intentionally entering the path of the train. As a result of the investigation, the communications agent involved attended refresher training on station location identification and emergency notification procedures. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Keyrose?
Yes, Chair. The Vice Chair has raised his hand.
Yes, please.
Thank you, and not a question, but a comment. You know, to incidents where individuals have entered the track area, and I note that Washington Metro has begun discussing platform doors, platform screening doors that would basically protect Washington Metro from these types of incidents, and certainly it would be better for the individuals involved in these, and also has the ability to prevent disruption. So I congratulate Washington Metro for considering this new technology. And you know, most of you who don't understand what a platform screen door looks like, you know, I would refer to the Dulles Airport, and how the Dulles Airport trains that take you out to gates C and A operate, where you don't have access to the train until the train is stopped at the platform and all the doors open. So that's an example of something that could enhance the safety of Washington Metro. Expensive, but you know, certainly worth a look to see if this is a viable technology for the future. Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Quigley regarding Whiskey 0417?
I see no more hands, Chair.
Okay, Ms. Quigley, would you please present to us Whiskey 0418?
Absolutely, Chair Hart. The final investigation for you today, Whiskey 418, involves an evacuation for life safety reasons that occurred on March 20th, 2025 at approximately 3:40 p.m. Potomac Avenue station manager initiated an evacuation of the station after receiving reports of smoke within the platform limits. The station manager notified the control center, and emergency personnel were dispatched. The smoke did not activate the station's automated fire detection system, and the manual fire alarm pull station was not activated. The station manager reported that the smoke appeared to be coming from the Track 2 tunnel in the direction of Eastern Market Station, with no visible fire or electrical arcing. In response, emergency tunnel fans were activated. Initial review of closed circuit television footage suggests that train 907, the last train to service the station prior to the report, may have been the source of the smoke, and the train was directed to be inspected at New Carrollton Station. Review of CCTV by the control center identified train 603 as the train with smoke. I lost my spot. Beneath the lead car, so smoke from the lead car on train 603 as it passed through Potomac Avenue Station. By the time the train reached the next station, the smoke had dissipated. Track inspections between Eastern Market and Potomac Avenue stations found no evidence of fire or infrastructure damage. The probable cause of this evacuation for life safety reasons was smoke reported within the station platform limits, which was later determined through CCTV review to have originated from train 603. The train was inspected, but the source of the smoke could not be determined. As part of corrective actions, Metrorail updated guidance within Metrorail Operations Rulebook, the MOR, regarding station evacuations and reviewed procedures related to managing fire and smoke incidents in the system. So thank you. That completes this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quigley, and my apologies for thinking this report was by Ms. Keyrose. I apologize for that.
It's okay, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Quigley regarding this report?
I see no hands.
Okay, and now we're going to adopt the investigations, and I would like to see if we can do it jointly. Is there a motion to adopt the investigations that have just been presented, Whiskey 0414 through Whiskey 0418? Is there a motion to adopt all of them at the same time?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? Please raise your hand and say nay.
Chair, the vote is unanimous, 6 yeas, 0 nays. Report 4014 through 414 through 418 are adopted as presented.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. We will now move on to resolutions and other business. Our next item is adoption of our annual report. We continued our oversight work in 2025 to help Metrorail achieve substantial safety improvements through ongoing collaboration, safety audits, inspections, safety certification oversight, safety event investigations, and other work. Our ongoing robust safety oversight helped ensure that Metrorail properly completed its safety certification process to activate automatic train operations on each line in the system. We continue to oversee WMATA's automation efforts by routinely providing our safety concern and feedback and attending to testing, demonstrations, workshops, and meetings. In 2025, the WMSC also approved WMATA's new roadway worker protection program as required by Federal Transit Administration Rules 449 CFR Part C 671. The rule established maximum safety standards to prevent safety events, injuries, and fatalities to transit workers who may access the roadway to perform their duties. The WMSC issued 4 audit reports and conducted work on 3 additional safety audits in 2025, issued or to be issued in 2026. These audits identify positive practices and opportunities for safety improvement that the WMSC requires Metrorail to address to ensure that Metrorail is following its safety management system commitments specified in its Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. The WMSC approved for closure 44 corrective action plans in 2025. These corrective action plans were designed to address safety concerns identified during WMSC oversight activities. Each Metro Rail actionable item completed during the implementation of a CAP improves the system's safety. The WMSC continued to monitor the effectiveness of these safety mitigations even after a CAP is closed. This annual report provides a snapshot of Metro Rail safety in 2025, the work towards Metro Rail's continuous improvement of its safety, and our future activities. Dr. Meyer, do you have anything to add regarding the annual report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hart. The report highlights some of our important safety oversight work that we conducted in calendar year 2025, as you just said. The report includes information on our own WMSC operations, as well as the safety of the WMATA rail system in 2025. This report is in addition to our annual data reporting to the FTA through its State Safety Oversight Reporting Tool, or SSOR. We submitted that technical data report to the FTA as required yesterday, March 16th. Upon adoption, the WMSC annual report for 2025 will be sent, as required by law, to leaders in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and the federal government. And it will also be provided to WMATA leadership, including its board, and of course will be available to the public on our website. Our safety oversight work in 2025 continued to identify areas of progress leading to safety benefits for riders and workers. Our work has also identified Metro Rail safety issues that WMATA is required to correct. In 2025, our work included overseeing Metro Rail's activation of ATO on each of its service lines, as well as the Rail Traffic Controller Consolidation Project on the Rail Operations 4 desk in the Control Center. It also included safety audits of operational aspects, including communication systems, elevators and escalators, rail operations and the Control Center, emergency management and life safety, and starting our audit work on internal safety reviews, track and structures, passenger rail cars and roadway maintenance machines, and roadway worker protection. Our work also included inspections conducted under our new inspections program, which includes, of course, risk-based inspections. Our work included frequent and regular communication with personnel at all levels of the Metro Rail organization to ensure that hazards are properly identified and mitigated. And finally, the report covers our approval of Metro Rail's new roadway worker protection program following our oversight of their nearly year-long development activity. We appreciate the financial support of Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia and the FTA, and I'm proud of our performance against budget and our ongoing clean financial audits. And I'm also appreciative, of course, of the team's dedication and continued commitment to safety. Thank you, Chair Hart.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners regarding his report on our annual report?
No hands, Chair.
Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve and publish the annual report on WMSC operations and the safety of the WMATA rail system in 2025? Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, there's the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Chair, the vote is unanimous to adopt the report, to approve the report, I'm sorry, and to distribute it as required under the compact. We'll make sure that happens expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Is there any other business that the commissioners would like to address today? Hearing none. Members of the public, we appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. I want to specifically notice that I've been very pleased with these reports as we see them. Each time successively shows more collaboration between Metro and WMATA, and that's between Metro and WMSC, and that's to their mutual credit and to our mutual benefit. So that collaboration is crucial to us working together, and I'm so excited to see the collaboration is continue to work better with each event. As a reminder, You can always report any safety concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, or through our local social media channels or by email. Our next public meeting will be on April 14th, 2026. We appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Hearing no further business, the public meeting is adjourned.